Many people who know me noticed that I had disappeared from being online for quite some time. So, what happened to me and why did I leave my YouTube channel and the rest of the world all behind? Well, in a nutshell, I have been extremely sick with a whole list of medical problems, some very serious. Here's how it went. I think my problems started in the last half of 2023, but in January 2024, my wife noticed that I was off, taking naps at odd times, saying and doing strange things. One time I moved my car to the front of the house and parked in front of the wrong building. It took me 20 minutes to get back into our house, and I don't know what I was doing in those 20 minutes. Just weird things like that. I didn't catch any of this, but Monique did, and she was concerned. She mentioned it to me a few times, but I was too out of it to understand I was too out of it. The old saying, pigs don't know pigs stink syndrome, I guess. Anyway, things became much more obvious to everyone on January 18th. By the way, I don't remember any of what I'm about to tell you from most of January 18th. This all has been explained after the fact to me. Early on the 18th, I apparently decided I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs around 3 a.m. My wife obviously was still in bed. At some point that morning, Monique heard a message from me on the Alexa device. She heard me say that I had fallen down and needed help. She ran downstairs and found me on the floor outside the bathroom. The faucet in the kitchen was running full blast. No one knows why I turned it on. I wasn't anywhere near the kitchen when I collapsed. Also, I didn't know it at the time, but I injured my tailbone when I fell. 4 months later, and it still hurts, but I still don't remember how it happened. Truth is, I was pretty much incoherent, so how I had the presence of mind to send the Alexa message, I don't know. I'm glad I did, because I could have been laying there for several hours before Monique got up if I hadn't. Monique hollered for my son Ryan to help, and they got me into a chair. She said she was going to call 911. Apparently I begged her not to, but she said pfft to me and did it anyway. Thank God she did. At that time, no one knew just how sick I was. Paramedics and firemen arrived, loaded me into an ambulance, and we took off for the hospital. The hospital staff quickly figured out that I had several problems. My blood sugar level was well over 400. That's more than 4 times what it should be. I had sepsis. I actually had 2 different infections, strep and staph, simultaneously. I also had diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a buildup of ketones or acids in the bloodstream. Each of these is serious. I had all 3 at once. I was one very sick puppy. I remember none of the ambulance ride to Baylor Scott & White, the emergency room visit, or the start of the treatments. Ultimately, they got me into a hospital room and stuck several IVs in me, pumping me full of fluids and meds. Apparently, I became quite aggressive during all this, to the point where I was trying to rip the IVs out of my arms. Monique later told me that she was watching me go through all this with a horrible dread, afraid that I might never come out of it. She was terrified that I might be gone mentally for good. That's how bad I was.
Okay, can you just tell me your name? What do you want me to call you?
My name is
Yeah.
Chef Schaefer.
Okay. And then your birthday is when? Okay.
Well,
Your birthday. How old are you? How about that? How old are you?
yeah. Okay.
Oh, you want me to take it off for now? You know where we are, Jeff? Can you tell me where we are?
We are in Texas.
Texas, okay. Where in Texas, can you tell me?
We're in Texas.
Oh, okay, thank you. What month are we in?
January.
Thank you, sir. And last, tell me your birthday again. You haven't told me yet. When is your birthday? Want to fix it? Oh. That's my last question, and then I'll let you rest.
January.
Your birthday?
Ultimately, the medicines and fluids started to kick in. The first thing I remember is suddenly realizing that I was in a hospital bed. It didn't even occur to me at first that I had no idea how I got there. The doctors were explaining what was wrong with me as I came out of the delirium or whatever I was in, but it made no sense. That was one of the strangest moments in my life. The last thing I knew, I was going to bed the night before. Then I just appeared in a hospital bed and had no idea how I got there or even that anything was wrong with me. It was crazy. I was in that room for 9 days. Over that time, they also determined that I had suffered 3 small strokes, and I contracted COVID. Actually, Monique caught COVID in the ER, and I ended up getting it from her. That's what we believe anyway. In clearer moments, I was thinking, what the hell else can go wrong? Later, I was sorry I asked that question. Anyway, at that time, I thought the COVID was terrible. I had pressure on my chest and struggled to breathe as I lay in the bed. Little did I know that these symptoms were probably due to something different that I would discover only later. Anyway, this was a very bad 9 days. I was so sick and unstable, and I felt horrible. I was covered in tubes and wires that twisted all over my body. I felt like I was tied up in my bed, and in my weakened state, that caused me to panic. I literally started to believe that the hospital staff had tied me down. Imagine my wife having to say, "No, Jeff, you're not a hostage. You aren't tied down." It's heartbreaking that she was in that position, but that's where things were for a while. In truth, I definitely was twisted up in cables and sheets frequently, but I really felt like, and at times believed, I had been subdued. I remember talking to a friend on the phone and telling him, "You won't believe what they're doing to me in here. I'll tell you when I can." Another time I was talking to my manager on the phone, and I told her that the hospital staff had tied me up. She thought I was kidding when I said it. I was totally serious. So here they were trying to treat me, and I was trying to figure out how to smuggle out the story so someone could rescue me. It was all very, very strange. This got even worse when I realized I didn't have my wallet or car keys. I was really upset that my wallet had been taken away. I felt that I had lost my identity, and it made me very angry. This was part of my feeling that I was in custody. I had no IDs, no credit cards, no money. In my mind, I was an anonymous prisoner who had lost any proof of who I was. Worse, they even had sensors on the bed that would alert them if I tried to get up. I couldn't even roll over in bed without triggering an alarm. From the staff's perspective, they wanted to keep me in bed so I didn't fall and break my neck. To me, I was a hostage. But I couldn't sleep because of the alarms that went off every time I moved. I was a prisoner of Big Brother. Perception is a hell of a thing, isn't it? Honestly, this was like an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I took it very, very seriously. I really believed it. As you can imagine, I fought and wanted to leave. Finally, Monique threatened to leave me in the hospital and go home to force me to cooperate. That made me feel even more helpless, and that pissed me off even more. Now, this all may sound silly, but I remember at least some of what I felt, and it was terrifying and upsetting like I can't explain. I'm just glad I was too weak to put up a real fight. I believe I actually might have hurt someone in that state. At times, especially early on, I was panicked, severely enraged, and a bit out of my mind. That's a dangerous combination. Ultimately, however, over time I improved in response to the treatments. I was able to negotiate with the nurses so I could sit on a chair or on the side of the bed for short periods of time. That helped a great deal. I wasn't strapped down all the time anymore.